Hello, Iko. Hello, Ademi. Let me not ruin your name. Ademi Ladeola. Thank you for joining us. Hi. If you can hear me clearly, please give me a thumbs up. Let me see what's going on. Okay, so we are hosting an author. Her name is Ukamaka Olisakwe today. So we're waiting for her to join in. But before she comes in, I'll tell, okay, hi, she's come. So I'll wait for her to join. You. Let's see. Hi.
Hi. Oh, I am so sorry. The
No, it's fine.
network here is really fucking with me.
Oh.
I'm really sorry about that.
Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you and I can hear you clearly.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just that your video is, I can hear you very clearly. But your video is what is it doing now? I just see a picture of you. It's still. Anyway.
I don't. I think it's the problem with the network here. I don't know if it's my
Yeah.
Wi-Fi that is messing with me.
Okay. We're going to make lemonade out of this. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. So welcome. I'm so excited to have you. Unfortunately, we couldn't have you for a physical conference. It would have been nice to have a longer conversation, but it's going to be okay. So yeah, could you tell us a little about yourself? The audience a little about yourself.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so glad. I had looked forward to the larger conference, but um, the coronavirus pandemic has really messed with everything, and I'm a bit sad about that. But I'm grateful for this. So my name is Ukamaka Olisakwe.
Sorry,
I'm
please, you
a
still sound
writer.
distant. Could you raise your voice and then come closer to the phone? If you're using a
I'm
headset,
even.
I find headsets sometimes also muffle the sound as well.
Oh, okay. Maybe I should remove the headset.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Fantastic. Like very loud, very loud.
I think the
Yeah.
problem is the headset. I'm really sorry about that, and
Yeah.
I hope that
It
the
happens to a
video
lot
will.
of people. It actually happens to a lot of people. Don't worry about it. It's not you. It happens to a lot. I think we had this challenge on Monday when our speaker was using a headset as well. So I can hear you very clearly now.
Okay.
Okay. All
Much
right.
better. So
Yes.
yeah, so thank you so much for having me here.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Ukamaka Olisakwe. As you already know, I am a writer. I think I like to call myself a writer first before I call myself a mother and a wife, which many people do find problematic, and I hope we get to explore all of the reasons why I'm doing that, or why I choose that identity first before every other thing else. So yes, I have a novel coming out this June. I am primarily working on stories that explore motherhood, marriage, postpartum depression, postpartum complications. And I write all the stories through the lens of my own experience and having experienced postpartum depression and also dealing with postpartum complications that I will talk about more as we go on with the conversation. So thank you so much for having me here.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So I'm going to I'm going to read an excerpt of um this article called "After Three Children, reclaiming my body and my mind. Okay, I'm not going to read everything, but okay.
Okay.
So okay, maybe I should just start from the beginning. The nurse Ruth's face was set in tense lines of seriousness as she probed my cervix with a metal instrument. I knew this procedure by heart, having been through it 5 times in the past 17 years. Dilate cervix, measure the cervix, measure the uterine cavity, insert the uterine device. But Ruth was frowning. The last time, another nurse said the depth of my uterine cavity was too short. 12 years ago, after the birth of my 3rd child, I learned that my retroverted uterus had yet to properly settle itself nicely inside my pelvis, and that my cervix had partially descended into my vagina. I'm just going to move. Okay, so I smiled and thanked her. Then I cried all the way home, ignoring the curious looks of concerned passers-by, some of whom paused, as Nigerians are wont to do, to ask me what made me cry. My husband, G, was waiting at home when I got back. He looked pensive, but tried to act cool until I had kicked off my shoes and changed into my house dress. How did the procedure go? G asked. He wanted to know if I was fine. By fine, he meant my uterus had behaved and accepted another IUD. I'm fine, I said. He tried to have a conversation, but I just couldn't. I went through the motions of my day, tried to keep my mind off things. I wrote pages of the story and deleted them. I picked up a book, put the words, but the words kept bleeding into each other. I watched our son watch cartoons. Fast forward. Something is bothering you, he said. Do I look like something is bothering me? I said. As I arranged the books, which I had arranged the week before, he begged me to come to bed. He held me, curled into his embrace, and then blah, blah, blah. But as he, okay, but as he slid inside me, I held my breath and tightened my vaginal muscles, willing my cervix to behave and not leak drops of blood as it had done sometimes in the past. After he rolled off my body, I hurried into the bathroom, slipped my finger into my vagina, and inspected the wetness for blood stain. I saw none. Okay. There's some other thing I want to where is this now? Okay. While my body went to pieces after the birth of my first child, I still admitted to myself. I still submitted myself to the process again and again. That is what I was taught marriage is all about. Giving birth to children who will carry forward the man's torch after you are all dead and gone, no matter the emotional and physical costs. I'm also skipping ahead to something else. My first labor stretched for 3 days. I was 19. Because I had become too weak by the 3rd day, the doctor took a scalpel to my perineum, fused a suction to my daughter's head, and pulled her out. The suction cap left a huge red swelling on her scalp. After I was wheeled back to my hospital ward, my first inclination was to feel the floor with my toes, to be sure I had truly survived this. Then I wanted to sleep for a whole week. The very idea of standing or walking, turning my knees to mush. My daughter was asleep in her cot when a sister-in-law scooped her up and began to inspect her body. She saw the swelling and gasped. You must never let anyone see this or they will call you weak, she told me, and drew a hat over my daughter's head. She was a middle-aged woman who herself had had 3 children, a girl and 2 sons, the second of which had put her through a traumatic birth experience that left her immobile for nearly 2 months. I shrank but nodded in agreement, believing she knew better and was speaking from experience. It sounded so right. Relatives roamed around us, hugging and thumping my husband's hand, praising him for marrying a woman who in the end conquered childbirth and brought him a daughter. I sat on my bed and smiled and laughed, and then, though my stomach felt gorged out, I became dizzy whenever I tried to sit up straight. I pretended to be strong. A strong woman is a husband's pride, was what I was expected to be, what I would be. I kept my daughter's hat on and performed my role of a strong wife My episiotomy was stitched so tight that I cried when I bent to pee or defecate. My inverted nipples had blistered and bled each time my daughter latched onto suckle. Pregnancy had messed with my lower intestine, and I would sit on the toilet bowl for hours, crying as I passed constipated, very graphic, constipated shit, because my bowel had forgotten how to regulate the unusual flow of feces. I moved through the day in pants, dizzy and fatigued, and my husband counted down the days until he could start having sex again. See, the first time the first time I read your, I think it was last year, someone posted, I think it was Diary of a Nigerian Girl, posted on her, and that was the one you spoke about, postpartum depression, and I was moved. I was moved. Okay, so just tell us your story, and then I'm going to the excerpts I read from it. There's so much more down, but I'm just going to hit at the points in the part of this article that I read out. Okay.
Yeah, so I must say that it took me, I had my first child 2001. That was the label, the graphic description you read out.
Okay.
Happened in September 2001. So so you can see how long it took me to write this story, because where I come from, some of the reactions I have gotten are mostly from people who said, "Oh, why did it take you too long to write about this?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you enshroud yourself in silence? Why did you? Why? Lots of why." And what they keep forgetting is that we come from different communities and we have different cultural practices and norms and things we adhere to.
Who's asking you why?
Oh, the reactions that I got online.
That is, are these Nigerians or foreigners?
Oh, both Nigerians and foreigners.
Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So the thing is, it took me this long to tell this story because I didn't know that I should tell it, and also because I had grown up in a community where we're not allowed to speak openly about this. I mean, the usual narratives where I come from is mostly about the sweet motherhood, you know, the Prince Nikombaga song, you know, sweet mother did this, you know, we exalt the mother, which is a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And but then the danger is that we now have a single story of what motherhood is. It's you going into the labor room and toiling through it and then coming out with the baby. And of course, we also have the part where we have the baby dies or the mother dies, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about surviving childbirth, surviving labor, giving birth to that child and coming out. So it's usually a joyful, mostly joyful stories. You know, we don't talk about the postpartum depression that follows afterward. We don't talk about the complications that follow. In fact, the literatures available that we read are often about that joy at the end of the suffering.
Not the process.
You know. Yes, not the process also, not also the even after the after process, not just the before or even after, it's even what comes next. So what happens after the child is born? So we don't talk about that. And since we don't talk about that, I didn't know that I should also talk about that, having even gone through all that experience. And also being the fact that it was also I come from a very lower class family, and also I think economy and wealth plays a major role, and also the kind of education the woman had before she got married.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that also played a major role to my silence, because I married when I was 19 and had my daughter right before I turned 20. So I barely knew nothing. I hadn't read vastly as I've done recently.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you know, so the only literature or the only knowledge I had was from my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, the things they told me. This is how you should do it. Don't let your husband see this or he would consider you weak.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame or I don't feel that those women are some oppressors. I think they were speaking from their own experiences, you know, how they had endured childbirth and it things the women. It's a very vicious circle.
Yes.
You know, we keep handing down these stories. But everything changed after I moved to the United States for my master's. So I joined a different community, and there's something about moving far away from home. You don't even have to move to the US or to the UK or to any Western country. Even moving to somewhere like Lagos, for example,
Yeah.
moving from your own culture, from your own community, it gives you a different perspective. It's, you have this advantage of looking toward home and then comparing the things that I am seeing where I am now and the things, and I began to realize the things we do better, the things we don't do well, the things we should do better, So I had that different perspective, and also joining this community of women here in Vermont, in the United States, where people openly talk about their experiences, people openly talk about their depression, people openly talk about different in mental health.
Yeah.
I the first classroom conversation we had where the women who I have surrounded myself with talking about, not even about childbirth, talking about even drug abuse, everything. They were openly talking about that. And I realized, oh, there is no silence, that I can actually say things and no one would judge me for it. So it's different. I know that those women, they wouldn't have talked openly about it at home if they were living in my community where I gave birth to my own child, So that wall between our cultures sort of gave me protection, or the sort of it's encouraged me to talk about my experience. So I told them about my experience. Like I've been talking about it for the past 2 years. My thesis is entirely about postpartum depression and postpartum complication, because now
What's your master's in?
Our master's, MFA in writing and publishing. It's
Okay.
master,
Okay.
master of fine art, in
Okay.
writing
All right.
and publishing. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. I know that I am able to talk about this now. I was able to write this essay you just read, the excerpt you read from, because I came here. If I'd still continued living in my community in Nigeria, which I absolutely love, like I love my country, I love my community to death, but this gave me a different perspective, and I realized that, Ukamaka, you can actually talk about this. You can actually give a different story. You can actually
Perspective.
tell something different. Yeah, and I also
You can
actually
actually speak the secret. Speak. That is the thing.
yeah.
Speaking the secret. You can actually speak the secret. That is it.
Yeah, and one thing that was very interesting, I think the major gain from this essay is having a conversation with my husband. And he said something that I will never ever forget. He said, I didn't know all this. That is huge. Living with someone, this December, we're going to be 19 years of marriage.
Whoa.
And then, yeah.
Congrats.
And then and then him saying, I didn't know this. That is the thesis of my entire new project. I didn't the silence, what it also means for the man, the ignorance, and how through that ignorance they end up even hurting the woman, because they don't know. If we don't have that conversation, how would they know? Like in a typical Nigerian hospital, when my husband brings me to give me I've gone into labor, and he brings me, what they do is they shush him away. They tell him to go home.
Yes.
Go home. He can't stay. He can't experience it. He can't see what my body is going through. They tell him to go home. In fact, they push him away. They tell him, go and get hot water for tea, or go and get hot water. Come back in the next how many hours. And then when I give birth, they give him a call, and then he comes, and he's now seeing the joyful mother. And
yes.
Or they call right as I am it depends on who calls, but the thing is, he doesn't witness the trauma.
Yes.
So I'm exploring in my
yes. Honestly, your writing is so powerful. I was going to say something that struck me before I even get to my questions. While you were talking, is there are lots of people who actually go through these things. Okay, forget about the fact that culturally it's not something that's spoken about in public. Even amongst other women, I have situations where you ask someone, oh, at first, is labor painful? And they're like, I can't even remember. I was like, how can you not even remember? How can you not remember that? I remember. It's culturally not something you talk about or something. But what I would like to say is that, people like you, it's really important for us to have people like you in our community, because writing is a powerful tool. It's not everybody that can articulate the things that they're going through. on paper in a way that, because you can feel feelings, but there's a way you need to put those things down so that other people can experience it the way you experienced it, you know. And reading your articles, it sounds genuine. It sounds, this is something that is totally relatable. I'm sure all the ladies you know, who are here, you know, can relate, because you're saying the truth. You go to the hospital, you subject yourself, you're like, you know, you're taking one for the team. You're taking one for the team, you know, several for the team or whatever, you know. And then we don't talk about it. Yeah, sorry.
And then also the dangerous part of that is the pressure on the woman. So this is an entirely family story, but I'm not going to name names so that I don't get into trouble. So you would have situations where, because of the pressure, because of the fact that the man is not there to experience that delivery with the woman, so you would see men say something like, "Oh, my wife went into labor. 10 minutes later, she gave birth to the child."
Just like that.
Just like that. And then in Igbo, we say something like "Agonwine." She's Agonwine.
Yes.
You know,
that's a lioness, right?
Yeah, lioness sort of.
Yeah.
So what happens is that you now put so much pressure on the next woman. So she wants to become that Agonwine.
Yeah.
She wants praise too. So I had a situation where my sister-in-law, what did she do? She went into labor. She didn't tell her husband that she was in labor. She waited until her contraction were 15 minutes stretched apart, and then look at what happened. Because she did it the first time, and then she went.
They were less than 5 minutes to me.
Yeah, less than 5 minutes. Even if she got to the hospital, 10 minutes she gave birth, and then they called her Agunwai. Now for the second child, she tried that antic again, despite being in so much pain. But she gave birth in the car before they got to the hospital, and the child contracted infection, and they had to start treating that child. So that is the pressure, you know. And after that experience, she didn't do it again. But the point is, we cover men, we allow them so much ignorance by not talking about this, which is why in fact, I encourage my husband, share this essay with your friends. Let them have conversations with their wife, because something that happens is unprocessed trauma affects us even sexually.
Yes.
Because that would come even I couldn't even connect what is happening to my body and the anger I had repressed underneath. And what happened is that
I'm clicking for you.
and then what happened is that my body rejects him each time he wants us to have sex. I would say, "Oh, I'm tired." Like, you see so much distance.
That's code. I said, "I have a headache." That's code.
Yeah, exactly. So you see all that unprocessed trauma, how it affects, and the relationship will begin to deteriorate. Sometimes it gets to unmanageable points, and then you begin to hear different stories. Oh, the wife is now having an affair, or the man is having an affair. Yeah. All those, we don't have those conversations are really, really important for us to have it, because when we share those stories together, it even increases the intimacy. Yeah. The man will begin to find different ways of pleasing the woman. So if your body had changed after childbirth, like what happened to me, my cervix tipped a bit into the uterus.
You had what's it called, prolapse, a minor prolapse.
Yeah, I had my mild prolapse. So if we don't have conversation about how to navigate this new way of lovemaking, what happens is that I wouldn't want to talk about it, because I would say, "Oh, he's going to think I am now ruined or something." And then he would be like, "Why is she always wooden when we're making love?" So you begin to see all those begin to rise. They begin to rise and the relationship deteriorates. Yes. Which is why it actually affected me, our relationship, deeply, until we had a conversation about it. Which is why I am all for having different narratives about childbirth, about postpartum
depression and mood disorders, peripartum mood disorders, prenatal mood disorders. Yeah. So I want to ask a question. So did the conversation start after you had written, or was it before you started writing? Did you start having that conversation? Just having those honest conversations?
Oh, after I had started writing.
Okay. All right. So there's something I want to touch on. Head of clinical psychology, clinical services here at PSN, we've okay. There's someone who we know, a midwife who does antenatal classes for dads. She's featured on like up to 3 of our conferences. So she she asked us to she asked us to come and talk to dads, about postpartum depression and things like that. And interestingly, which was very good of him, Mr. Wale, he also decided to talk about anxiety disorders in fathers. I mean, there's so much that hasn't been spoken about concerning moms, right? But even men go through. I'm not trying to reduce what we go through in any way, but just as human beings, there's so much going on, and we're not communicating at all.
Yeah.
Men go through so much anxiety as well, and the thing is, the way they express that anxiety is also alienating, in the sense that some may go into alcoholism, some may leave the house, not be at home, or and all those things. And it's just very interesting how, just listening to the conversation, the back and forth, when you came back from the check, that this is in the article I just read.
Yeah. So yeah, that's also, I like really that part. See, it can't be a one-way street. I am I don't want to use the word. Okay, I'm a feminist, but there are really different layers to my ideology of what my ideas of what feminism should be. And I totally am in for having conversation with the man. Especially, I'm not just talking about my own experience, which is why my latest project, which is actually my graduate thesis, we have this back and forth conversation between the man and the woman, and that's in my new project. So you get to explore the man's anxiety with childbirth, how to understand what's happening to the woman, and also the woman's her own panic attacks, her own anxiety, her own complications that she's dealing with, and then what you have in the middle is this huge more that is sinking their relationship. And until the both of them had kind of come to a compromise and had that conversation, their relationship will keep deteriorating. So when I talked with my husband about my experience, that was after I had come home. I came here in 2018 for my MFA. So what I usually do is I go home every holiday to spend time with my family. My child, she's going to be 18 by September. The second will be 16. And as much as they are grown, my last baby is 13. So as much as they are almost grown up, they can fend for themselves at this stage and take care of themselves. They are their own people. I like this idea of always going back home every holiday, like I don't even miss it. But then I also realized that their father, despite our genial relationship now, there's still so much that we need to talk about. There's so much anxiety on his own part. I noticed that with my child, but I couldn't connect. I didn't have a language for it back then until I started exploring, like learning new terms. In fact, I didn't even know that what I had was uterine prolapse. I didn't have a language for it. The nurse described it in Igbo for me. So I didn't get it until I had to start Googling, and then I had to go for a second checkup to understand what's happening to my body and how to fix it. So I am totally for having conversation with the man, because if we don't, the family suffers, the children suffers, except maybe the relationship has become so strained that the two of them cannot coexist anymore. Then they can decide to part ways, or maybe co-parent their children. So yeah.
Okay, so there's another thing that from the article. Okay, first of all, someone would like to review your book, Mrs. Nonye Adeniji. That's Divine Memoirs. So I think what we do is please send Ukamaka a direct message. She's at Olisakwe on Instagram, so she can. When is your book coming out? You said June. Was it June or July?
It's June, but I don't think it's coming. It's not coming out this June anymore. So my publisher in London is moving the publication date to sometime in the fall, like around September, because of the.
Is there like a Kindle version or an Audible version? Oh, fantastic!
The audio version is currently in process.
Okay.
A UK publishing recently bought the rights for the audio version, so they are working on it. So once that is ready, I will share the story with you. And also my Nigerian publisher, I know that they will be willing
Who's your
to share
Nigerian
copies.
publisher?
Masobe Books.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, they're relatively.
Okay, now yeah, Denny, she lives in the UK.
Yeah. So yeah. Even the audio publisher is a UK publishing firm.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. So I mean, I think what would reach everyone would be like Kindle version, Audible version, or something, right? Yeah. So the book, her book is called Ogadinma, but she has a number of articles, very, very powerful articles that she's written, and I'm going to share the link to each of those articles in our story, so you can just swipe up and then go and read it. Okay. So another thing concerning the leaf I'd like to pull from that from the excerpt I read was intrusion of people. You know, on a blog a few days ago, some lady was complaining of how she's had someone come to the house and then, want to bath the baby with very hot water, puts methylatum in the baby's mouth, wants to give the baby a go, and she feels she can't say anything because she doesn't want to offend. And I was just thinking about, when you do things, you don't think about them until you see someone else doing that sort of thing. I was just wondering, so this is your body, one, and this is your child, but you have no power.
Yeah. I think it all boils down to this idea. I'll continue to speak for my own community. Where I am from Anambra State. Where I come from, we always have the saying. We say the woman belongs to the community. We say she is our wife. So you become a public property. So it's not just you being married to the man. You are married to the community. And those people, they have opinions. They always enforce their opinions. They always come in. They would even see you on the street and say, "Oh, why are you wearing this or this?" There's no boundaries. They don't understand the idea that we should have our own personal boundaries. So when you give birth to a child, you see people come up with different things that they think should help the child. They would tell you how to do this or how to do that. Or even I was 19 and I was incredibly stupid then at 19. I must say, I had an in-law wanting to massage my daughter's clitoris with pomade, because according to her, that is how it is done. So it's not just female genital mutilation of wanting to cut the child, because they don't do that anymore. It's to massage it with pomade, to flatten it so that it wouldn't be protruding.
Oh my God.
It happened the first day and I was like, "Are you supposed to do this?" He said, yeah, it's my in-law. And what happened? I called my mom. My mom said, "Don't you dare do that." That they did it to her. Many parents are doing them to their children presently in our community. But she said, "Do not allow anybody to do that." In fact, she even told me that even her own mother, when she came for the omugo, did that to me, and I am talking to you, talking to you right now. But she married when she was just 16 years old, and she's a different person entirely from who she was. Because this idea that our women are the ones defending patriarchy, and they don't intentionally do that to hurt the women, but it's the way things are, and they keep handing down those practices from the next generation to the other. So I had to stop the woman from doing that, and we had a problem. And they think I am ruining my daughter, that my daughter is going to become a prostitute.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I wrote a poem about it recently, published last year, about them doing to me, because they did it to me, and my mom, she didn't know better then, and it's made me. I'm sorry, I'm getting too graphic.
No. Actually, sorry. Don't look at my face. I'm just contemplating, or I'm meditating on what you're saying.
Yeah, and then what happened is that after I started writing about all my experiences, I had to take a mirror to look at my own
body,
genital, and I realized that yes, they did it to me, because what you realize is that the clitoris becomes whittled, almost like just a flabby flesh sitting
Like
there.
the blood
But
supply and nerve or something is
yeah,
blocked.
but the blood supply is there, but it's still, I am lucky that it's still alive, so I can still experience clitoral orgasm. Unlike some people who don't experience it anymore, so they don't. Which was the reason why many times I read about female genital mutilation. People concentrate on the cutting; they don't pay attention to the massaging, which is a thing that is actually a thing happening.
I don't think I've read anything about it anywhere. Like it's not like a public, it's not, because FGM is like of public health concern.
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So I just basically, in summary from it's, I mean, with the movement for maternal mental health, there's been a strong push for having conversations, because, if we medicalize everything, oh, this is what postpartum depression is, this is what OCD is, this is what post-traumatic stress disorder and perinatal post-traumatic stress disorder is, it sort of flies over people's heads. But when you see a woman like yourself telling you, these are the thoughts that were going through my mind because of this trauma I went through, or sometimes some people don't even have any trauma. People don't even have any trauma, but they could still have blues. They could still have, there's so many triggers, so many stressors. It might be finance, it might not even be anything, because there are people who, I think Brooke Shields didn't have, there was nothing wrong with, there was no known risk factor, and then she still came down with postpartum depression. So I mean, just basically, in summary, from what I've just gleaned, I mean, it's very, very important to be able to have your voice, and be able to articulate your feelings and your desires. It is very, very important that a woman is educated and empowered. I don't know how, as in, it cannot be overemphasized. You come into your own, you understand. Yeah, sorry. Mm-hmm.
And also, many of our women back home, and they don't have Western education, but they are incredibly intelligent.
Yes.
So what I told my mom when my essay was published is I told her, because she's the assistant chair lady of our town's meeting. She lives in Kano State presently. I told her, is it possible to share this with the women, to talk about it at the town's union, because they have this town's union meeting once every month, and most of the women aren't Western educated. So what if you talk about it, you use the simpler terms, you talk about it in Igbo so that they can get what is happening? Because we've had cases where women give birth to children and they go through postpartum depression, and it's been chalked down to evil spiritual attack.
Yes.
You have this where a woman wants to, I don't want to touch this child. Take this child away from me. Breastfeed the child, or they want to run away. They think someone is spiritually haunting the
person, or that the woman is a witch.
So I am all for, not everyone will be a writer, but you can also, you have your community meeting, you have your town's union, go there and talk about it. You have the church meeting where everything they talk about. I was a member of the Christian Women Women Association. Yeah, and what they were essentially telling us is how to take care of our husbands, not how to take care of ourselves. How to take care of our husband and our children, not about us, about yourself. Often I would even ask my my sister-in-law, who I'm very good friends with, have you ever taken the finger, like wash your finger properly and dip it inside your vagina and check? Have you checked to see the changes in your body since you gave birth to your 3 children? And they're like, no, I'm not supposed to touch it. It's for my husband. I'm like, no, it's your body. Like, wash your hands properly, but don't put soap in your vagina. Wash your hands properly. Check it. Check what's happening with your body. This discomfort you would often complain of when you have sex with your husband.
Yes.
Yeah. So even my latest project, I talk a lot about penises and vaginas, like women who give birth to children, or women who suffer postpartum complications. Size matters, and if your husband is on the bigger side, he can potentially hurt you if he doesn't know the right way of pleasing your new body. So I'm all for having this conversation. I am thinking of maybe in the future creating this podcast. So those who can't even write, I mean, podcasts where we talk in Igbo language,
Yes.
we talk to each about childbirth and what our bodies
I'm doing.
have gone through or are undergoing and how to mitigate that or how to help ourselves, and even bring the men onto the show and talk
Have this
about it.
honest
Like,
conversation. You know, it's
yeah,
funny.
break the silence.
Yeah. Sorry, please finish.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
So it's funny because this whole thing of witchcraft and all that this is the reason why PSN Africa was started. Like the founder Kachi, he had a relative who I think she had was actually psychosis she had, but I don't think he was around and all that, and so many things happened to her. She was taken to the village. They took her baby away from her and all that, obviously for the baby's safety and all that. But by the time he had gotten to her, they had already gone too far. The woman really suffered, and this is something that would have been dealt with well, obviously psychosis is not you don't do therapy first, medication and all that, so it's really important. And then another thing that struck me when you were talking is that it's very important to be like for now you have a tool, a powerful tool, which is you have a pen, you know how to articulate words and feelings in a way people can understand, and then you are an Igbo speaker. I don't know if there are things that are said in our vernacular, our languages, that because the people who are translating these things are not, I will say they're not educated, because see, that in Igbo, there are idioms, there, in different languages, there are idioms, there are deep things that are said that they lose their meaning once they are translated literally to English, because the sense of it is lost,
Yeah, it's lost.
So someone like you can articulate. If you were, for example, at such meetings, you can write people's stories, and there's a hidden, I mean, these are things that are happening that people are not talking about, that people need to know about, and then another thing, the first time I met the founder, we were just talking, he was saying that, do I know that there's actually no term in any Nigerian language for postpartum depression? In Yoruba, there's something called what they call abisinwi, and abisinwi is like, when a woman goes, it actually describes postpartum psychosis, but there's no postpartum depression. I've asked my mom, what's postpartum depression? What, as in, is there no word for this thing? This thing exists. This is not a white woman's it's not a Western. People are going through the things and they're not talking about it, but there's no word. If there's no word for this thing, there's no way of describing it. That thing technically does not exist. You understand what I mean? But it does. It does.
It does. I mean, recently, my friend Kola Tubosun, and he's a translator, he's a linguist also. So they keep translating terms into Yoruba language, and they're doing like incredibly. Sometimes I'm even very envious of the work they're doing. You'd see them even for this coronavirus, this novel coronavirus disease. They already have a word for it in Yoruba language. They already have a definition for it. But so I asked my Igbo friends the other time, so what would we call coronavirus? I know we have whooping cough, we have tuberculosis. When all these things happen, we create a word for it, and when we create a language for it, we know how to educate
it
others
has
in
a
our
face.
community. Yeah, it has thank you. It has a face. We know how to take care of it. So yeah, for postpartum depression, I don't know what it's called in Igbo, and this is amazing. I'm seeking your permission to ask my friends, what do we call postpartum depression in Igbo and postpartum complication?
Yes, please,
What
if just you guys can share you in your languages what postpartum depression is called.
Depression
So I'm so glad we're having this discussion. I mean, I didn't even think, I knew it was going to be, just because your writing is so powerful, that it was going to be a lovely discussion. But even, I mean, there's so many things, so many things that have come up, and it can go on and on. Please don't wait to do the podcast. Just like start already, I'm going to share the links to your article so people can read, because they're very powerful. I want to encourage everybody to have these conversations, and also for men to also speak, because they are not. I don't think I really don't, because there's just this thing, where we feel that men are generally evil, but it's actually a communication issue. It's a communication issue on their part, because they have been trained to not talk about their feelings, and also expect certain things from women, and also we women need to be less, we are more critical of ourselves than anyone else, both inside ourselves and then as a community of human beings called women. It's really important. Ukamaka, thank you so much for honoring this.
And thank you everyone. Nonye Adeniji, talk to Dr. Tiwa.
Yes.
Oh my God. Thank you so much everyone for everything you've said and for encouraging me to start the podcast. I'm about to start my PhD program soon. I haven't even shared this news.
Wow.
with a larger
wishing you all the best.
Thank you. So I think that I'm going to make that my next project, to start a podcast in Igbo and have people.
Yes. And then also in English for people who, people who need to hear, who need to hear what has been said. It's very important. Very important. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic weekend.
My friend Dube, thank you, Dube. I just saw his comments. Thank you.
Yeah. So please, if you would like, if you live in Lagos because of lockdown and you would like any of